Hey friend, Min Hwang here of Life-Giving Motherhood. I am a Charlotte Mason homeschool mom of 4 children, plus my friend's 2 children. And I have been a devotee of Charlotte Mason for over a decade now. I have read her volumes over and over again. They have been life-changing for myself and for my family. It is definitely a resource that I have been sharing and recommending to all of my mama friends especially. Therefore, a resource I would like to see freely made available to every mother, to every family. I have been leading a Charlotte Mason Moms Book Club locally. Many of us are ESL for the past several years. And so for my book club, which is quite diverse, I have been reading them aloud and recording them for my Charlotte Mason moms. I realized that it would be wonderful to have these recordings made freely available to every family out there and to have it all located easily, conveniently in one place. And the idea of a podcast came to mind last year. So here it is. I am beginning with volume 4 ourselves because half of my moms have started reading that and they've been requesting for me to record it for them. As well, it is a book that was written for students, and my students are reading ourselves as of this year. So it's great for them to be able to hear it read aloud while following along in their books. After ourselves, I'll make my way to volume 5 and then volume 6 before I loop back around to volumes 1, 2, and 3. I hope this is helpful to you as well, dear friend. Welcome back. We are in book 1 of ourselves, part 3, and today we will read chapters 5, 6, and 7. Love's lords in waiting, kindness. That best portion of a good man's life, his little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love, Wordsworth. It is interesting that a great poet should place little forgotten acts of kindness first in order of merit in the acts of a good man's life. Kindness also is a born lord of the bosom. I have known a little person, not old enough to talk, draw forward a chair and pat it for the visitor to sit down. The untutored savage has impulses of kindness. Kindness makes life pleasant for others. The law of kindness is universal. One would think at first sight that pity, benevolence, sympathy should cover the whole field, and that with these present, the office of kindness is but a sinecure in the house of heart. But there is a curious principle in human nature, best described perhaps as vis inertia, which makes even the benevolent, pitiful, and sympathetic person slow to do the little everyday things about which kindness concerns himself. The office of kindness is simply to make everyday life pleasant and comfortable to others, whether the others be our pets, which we feed and attend to, our dog, which we play with and take for a scamper, our horse, which we not only feed and care for, but cheer and encourage with friendly hand and friendly word, or our family and neighbors, rich and poor, who offer a large field for our kindness. The kind person is described by various epithets. He is called courteous or thoughtful, obliging or considerate, according as he shows his kindness by refraining or speaking, by his manner, his regard, his word, his acts. The kindness of courtesy. We English people are rather ready to think that it does not much matter how we behave, so long as our hearts are all right, and some of us miss our chance of doing the kindness of courtesy and adopt a hail fellow well-met manner, which is a little painful and repellent and therefore a little unkind. We miss, too, the courtesies of gesture. It is good in a German or Danish town to see one errand boy raise his hat to another, or schoolboy to schoolboy, or porter to laundress, without any sense of awkwardness. But in these matters we have got into a national bad habit. In this field, perhaps the rich and the poor meet together because there is not in either an unconscious struggle after social status, which does not belong to them, and so both can afford to be simple, considerate, gracious, and courteous to all who come in their way. Simplicity. Simplicity is a special quality of kindness. People can be kind only when all their thoughts are given to the person or creature they are kind to, and when there is no backward glance to see how the matter affects itself. A great deal has been said and written about kindness, about slippers and footstools and gifts of flowers, and much besides. There is even a movement to make children kind by counting up how many kind things they do in the course of each day, but that spoils all. The essence of acts of kindness is that they should be unremembered. Of course, we never mention a kindness we have done, whether to the person concerned or to other people, but chiefly let us beware that we do not say to ourselves, I have done this and that for so-and-so, and now see how he serves me. Or think that if we receive a kindness, we can blot it out, so to say, by conferring a favor. Worse still is the notion that having been kind to another gives us a right to expect great things from that other, and to be ungracious and disagreeable if the claims we set up do not seem to be recognized. But these pitfalls are escaped when kindness is simple, and we do not even know that we are being kind. It is not only our gifts to the poor that are covered by our Lord's precept, let not thy right hand know what thy left hand doeth. Everyone wants to be kind. Man is dear to man, the poorest poor, long for some moments in a weary life, when they can know and feel that they have been themselves the fathers and the dealers out of some small blessings, have been kind to such as needed kindness. Wordsworth. Kindness in construction. But the greatest, sweetest, most generous kindness is perhaps that of which we take least thought. I mean kindness in construction. There are always two ways of understanding other people's words, acts, and motives, and human nature is so contradictory that both ways may be equally right. The difference is in the construction we put upon other people's thoughts. If we think kindly of another's thoughts, think, for example, that an ungentle action or word may arise from a little clumsiness and not from lack of kindness of heart. We shall probably be right and be no more than fair to the person concerned. But supposing we are wrong, our kind consideration will have a double effect. It will, quicker than any reproof, convict our neighbor of his unkindness, and it will stir up in him the pleasant feelings for which we have already given him credit. Of all the causes of unhappiness, perhaps few bring about more distress in the world than the habit, which even good people allow themselves in, of putting an ungentle construction upon the ways and words of the people they live with. This habit has another bad effect, especially upon young people who are greatly influenced by the opinion of their fellows. They think so-and-so will laugh at them for doing a certain obliging action, so they refrain from following the good impulses of a good heart. Kindness which is simple thinks none of these things, nor does it put evil constructions upon the thoughts that others may think in the given circumstances. Be ye kind one to another is not an easy precept, but all worldly joys go less to the one joy of doing kindnesses. Herbert. Chapter 6. Love's Lords in Waiting, Generosity. Generous impulses common to all the world. At first sight, it seems as if generosity were not a lord in every bosom, but ruled only the noblest hearts. But this is not the fact. When all England goes mad with joy because little Mafeking is relieved, when everybody forgets private cares, schemes, worries, annoyances, even hunger and cold and bodily need, being warmed and fed, as it were, by a public joy, or softened and made tender by a public sorrow, it is because all are stirred by what is called a generous impulse, an impulse which causes them, if only for a moment, to live outside of their own lives. I once heard a generous lecture upon a great poet given to a crowded audience of some thousands of people of very varying culture and condition. It was interesting to listen to the remarks that were passing as we made our way out of the crowd. One man said, with a choke in his voice, why, that man could do anything with us, lead us on any crusade he liked. And he was right. This is the history of the generous movements that have stirred the world, the Crusades, the anti-slavery war in America. A thought has been dropped which has stirred some generous impulse common to all the world. The nature of generosity is to bring forth, to give, always at the cost of personal suffering or deprivation, little or great. There is no generosity in giving what we shall never miss and do not want. This is mere good nature and is not even kindness, unless it springs out of a real thought about another person's needs. Large trustfulness. Generosity at its highest level and with a certain added tincture becomes enthusiasm, but of that we shall speak later. We may understand the nature of this ruler of men better if we consider that what magnanimity is to the things of the mind, generosity is to the things of the heart. Large and warm thoughts of life and of our relations with one another find place in the generous man. He is incapable of wholesale and bitter condemnation of classes or countries, parties or creeds. He is impatient of the cheap wit whose jokes are at the expense of the character for probity of some whole class of people, plumbers or plasterers or candlestick makers. He is equally impatient of the worldly wisdom which goes through life expecting to be defrauded here and cheated there. And he finds that, on the whole, it is he who possesses the wisdom of this world. For, by dint of fair and generous dealing, he may pass through a long life with hardly a record to show of the iniquity and cheating ways of his fellow creatures. But then, if he has only sixpence to spend, he spends it in a liberal and trustful way. It is a certain large trustfulness in his dealings, rather than the largeness of his gifts or the freedom of his outlay, that marks the generous man. Generosity is costly, but also remunerative. In like manner, in his commerce with his friends and neighbors, he harbors no grudges. That is, he is not on the watch that others should give him what he thinks is due of observance, consideration, service, or whatnot. He allows others to be the arbiters of their own conduct in all such matters, and those others respond, for the most part, to the trust reposed in them. This is not the easy attitude of mind which permits everything, because a want of self-respect creates a thirst for popularity. The generous man will have friends of widely different types because he is able to give large entertainment to men of many minds and to meet them upon many points. His interests are wide, his interpretations are liberal, and wherever his interest goes, it goes with a latent glow, ready to break forth in the heat of action upon occasion. Generosity is costly because it is always dispersing, be it the contents of the heart or of the purse. But it is also remunerative, for it has been said, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men give into your bosom." Generosity is also a saving grace, for the generous man escapes 1,000 small perplexities, worries, and annoys. He walks serene in a large room. There are so many great things to care about that he has no mind and no time for the small frettings of life. His concerns are indeed great, for what concerns man concerns him. But because his is a concern of the heart, warm and glowing, it is duly distributed. There are the equatorial and the polar regions of his care, neither of them quite unwarmed. He does not affect to love other countries as he loves his own, or his neighbor's children as his own family. Fallacious notions that restrain generosity. I have spoken of the generous man, but indeed this lord of the bosom is present in all of us, ready with the offer of large and warm living. But certain fallacious notions and small propensities are apt to keep him shut in narrow limits unless some happy word or occasion let him loose. When this happens to the whole community, we become alarmed and fear that we are all going mad. But really, it is that we have suddenly burst into large living without the restraints proper to an accustomed way of life. Let every man mind his own business is one of the fallacies that come to a person with a sense of obligation and of limitation to his own business only. The man not only shuts out the generous cares of a wider life, but he is consumed by the cares of his condition in all their petty details. Yet we must each mind our own business, or we are unworthy members of society, and throw so much of the world's work as is our own proper share upon the shoulders of other people. The secret is to mind our business strenuously within its proper hours, whether these hours are ruled for us or we rule them for ourselves. But the hours of work over, let us think it trespass so much as to turn our thoughts in that direction, and let us throw all our interest into outer and wider channels. That which seems to us our business in life, even that incessant business of being the mother of a family, will be far better done if we rule ourselves in this matter, because we shall be better, broader persons, and the more there is of a person, the more work will be done. Every man for himself and heaven for us all is another fallacy that shuts up lives in narrow rooms. Man is not for himself, and to get out of ourselves and into the wide current of human life of all sorts and conditions is our wisdom and should be our care. Another miserable and unspoken fallacy is, every person that I have dealings with is worse than myself. This is startling, put into words, but why else should we suppose that this person means to slight us and the other to offend us when we have no such intentions with regard to them? That we shall be cheated here and defrauded there when we ourselves would not willingly cheat and defraud. It is generous to trust freely, to trust our tradespeople and our servants, our friends and neighbors, those in authority over us and those subordinate to us. Be noble, and the nobleness that lies in other men, sleeping but never dead, will rise in majesty to meet thine own. Lowell. Chapter 7. Love's Lords in Waiting, Gratitude. The gladness of a grateful heart. No other Lord of the heart should do more to guide us into joyous and happy living than gratitude. How good and glad it is to be grateful. The joy is not merely that we have received a favor or a little kindness which speaks of goodwill and love, but that a beautiful thing has come out of some other person's beautiful heart for us. And joy in that other's beauty of character gives more delight than any gain or pleasure which can come to us from favors. We lose this joy often enough because we are too self-absorbed to be aware of kindness, or are too self-complacent to think any kindness more than our desert. Young people are apt to take the abounding, overflowing kindnesses of their parents as matter of course, and so they come to miss the double joy they might have in a touch, a word, a look, a little arrangement for their pleasure, 1,000 things over and above, so to speak, the love that is due from parent to child. A kindness is like a flower that has bloomed upon you unawares, and to be on the watch for such flowers adds very much to our joy in other people, as well as to the happy sense of being loved and cared for. You go into a shop and the shopkeeper who knows you, I am not speaking of big stores, adds a pleasant something to your purchase which sends you cheerily on your way. Some little kindness of look or word, some inquiry that shows his interest in you and yours, perhaps no more than a genial smile, but you have got into pleasant human relations with him because he has given you a kindness. There are two courses open to the receiver of this small kindness. One is to feel himself such an important person that it is to the interest of shopkeepers and the like to show him attention. The other is to go away with the springing gladness of a grateful heart, knowing that he takes with him more than he has bought. A grateful heart makes a full return. Life would be dull and bare of flowers if we were not continually getting more than we can pay for either by money or our own good offices. But a grateful heart makes a full return because it rejoices not only in the gift but in the giver. Formal thanks are proper enough on occasions, but there are other ways of expressing gratitude, which, indeed, is like love and a fire and cannot be hid. A glance, a smile, a word of appreciation and recognition straight from the heart will fill the person who has done us a kindness with pleasure. But let us avoid all expressions of thanks which are not simple and sincere. Simple in that we are really thinking of the kindness of the other person and not of ourselves, and sincere in that we do not say a word more than we feel or make believe to value a gift for its own sake when it is really not of value to us. The Reproach of Ingratitude. There is an ancient story of a city which decided that ingratitude was the blackest of crimes. The people of the city were practical and set up a bell in an open but desolate spot to be rung by any who should experience ingratitude. Time passed by and the bell was forgotten, perhaps because people were on the watch against this offense. But one day the bell rang out, and the whole city rushed to see who had a complaint to make of an ungrateful fellow citizen. A donkey had caught the rope with his foot, and as he moved about in search of the miserable herbage that grew on the spot, the bell pealed out. At first people laughed, but when they looked at the poor donkey and found him a wretched object almost too feeble to stand, they looked at one another and said, "Whose donkey is this?" Inquiry produced the owner, who was forced to confess that his donkey, having served him well for many years, became at last too old for his work, so he turned the poor creature out to live as it could. The people decided that the donkey had acted according to law in ringing the bell, and the mean man paid the penalty, which included the good keeping of the donkey with what grace he could. To make use of other people, to serve ourselves of them, is a sin of ingratitude. The grateful man has a good memory and a quick eye to see where those who have served need service in their turn. Especially does he cherish the memory of those who have served him in childhood and in youth, and he watches for opportunities to serve them. Gratitude spreads his feast of joy and thanksgiving for gifts that come to him without any special thought of him on the part of the giver, who indeed may himself have gone from the world hundreds of years ago. Thus he says his grace for a delightful or helpful book, for a great picture, for a glorious day, for the face of a little child, for happy work, for pleasant places. According to the saying of Jeremy Taylor, he is quick to taste the deliciousness of his employment. He is thankful for all the good that comes to him. The poor soul who believes that life yields him nothing beyond his deserts, that it would be, in fact, impossible to give him more than he pays for, whether in coin or merit, is to be pitied for all the joy he loses, as well as blamed for the pain and irritation his progress through life must cause. Yea, a joyful and a pleasant thing it is to be thankful. If you've enjoyed this episode, I invite you to give a 5-star rating so more people can find Charlotte Mason's volumes. Also, if you are interested in studying Charlotte Mason's volumes as well as growing in your own spiritual disciplines and life-giving habits to form a gospel-centered home culture, I invite you to check us out at life-givingmotherhood.com. All moms all over the world are invited. Thank you. I'll see you next time.